Welcome back, folks. This is a voice recording sent to us early this morning from a man working with maintenance and inspections in New York. He claims to have visited the site and been down the tunnels. This got our attention since the riot occurred yesterday. Please listen to what he has to say. Let's go.
I know what happened under the building on 770 Eastern Parkway yesterday. I have been there. I have been in the tunnel, and I know what they were up to. Today is Wednesday, the 10th of January, and yesterday, me and my father were called on site to assess the damage and eventual risks for the walkway. Less than a year ago, a section of the Kingston Avenue caved in at the same location. First, a short introduction. I'm in my 30s, a fourth-generation Brooklynite, and have been working in the family business since I cut classes in high school. My dad and his dad did the same, and we have been working for the city since the 1920s. We do maintenance of city infrastructure, and the type of services we provide makes us an important player in all kinds of work. From the steam tunnels in Manhattan to the now-forgotten four-lane freeway under the Lower East Side. Few people know the belly of this city as we do, my father especially. This all started in 2017, when my father was contacted by Homeland Security to be a part of a project to map the New York City underground. He did interviews, and in some cases, we went out on site to explain how vertical sections are connected. It's all connected, but in most cases, not on purpose, so you need to know the area to make it make sense. Anyway, before I explain the 770 building, I need to explain what New York is. New York City is old. I don't mean the area, I mean it in the modern definition of a proper city. New York has been a real city since the 1600s. What most people have trouble understanding is that 400 years ago, New York was filled with houses that looked just like single-family homes look today. Houses, what we now would call a classical style. Family homes with picket fences, proper windows, running water, gardens. Buildings for businesses in 2 and sometimes 3 floors made of stone and wood. A city. During the 17 and 1800s, the city grew and multi-story buildings were everywhere. I mean the full city of Manhattan, filled to the brim with buildings. And when Elisha Otis invented the safety brake for the elevator in the 1850s, the buildings got taller. Almost 200 years ago, we had hundreds of 10-plus story buildings. The most known would be the Hotel Netherland by Central Park, 17 stories, 230 feet. The original Astoria Hotel with 16 floors, and the World Building, commissioned by Joseph Pulitzer, yeah, that Pulitzer, with 18 floors rising over 300 feet from the city streets. I share this because most people don't understand for how long New York City has been a city in a modern sense. Okay, so what does it matter for the 770 story? It matters a lot. Let me explain. It takes a lot to run a city. The infrastructure below the streets is everywhere and needs a lot of room. Water, sewer, electricity, communications, and much more. For example, in Manhattan, there are miles and miles of steam pipes dating back to the early 1900s that are still in use. Anyway, my point is that a functioning city demands a vast amount of infrastructure in its belly. And for New York, we have to add 300 years of city projects underground, from the East Side Expressway, a full-blown freeway 50 feet below the Lower East Side that got abandoned in the 60s, to miles of unused tunnels and stations built for the first subway system. I could go on for hours with more examples, but just imagine 300 years of constant projects below the surface. Then we have the non-official projects, the vast tunnel network under Chinatown built by the mafia, the private railroads around Central Park, and the many walkways and service tunnels. Many hand-built systems from the Prohibition period, in the 1920s, resulted in full-height tunnel systems connecting most commercial buildings to the main tunnel network, which is the sum of all the official and non-official projects from the last 300 years. Below New York, there is an underground city just as big as above ground. If you know what you are doing, you can live a full life in the belly of the city. Some people do. Some people never leave, and some only pop up at night to do things not fit for daylight. We meet people in the strangest of places all the time. One time we were inspecting a job in Queens and found a full office set up with several furnished rooms, big computer screens, working electricity and plants. We called the police, of course, but they could not do much. They would empty the space and try to lock it down better, but they were probably back in business in a few weeks. Another time, we met a man in hiking gear in the tunnels under Marine Park looking for an exit. He wouldn't say how he got down there or what he was up to. It's not uncommon for us to meet people when we work below the surface. It is uncommon for us to land at a job where there is no sign of activity, no matter what borough. The city is alive under the surface. Some people just like that version of New York better, I guess. Okay, so back to the 770 Eastern Parkway. I have been there. I have walked, or more like crawled the tunnel, and I know what they were up to. This was not their first dig, and they are not any kind of builders. So, along both sides of the Eastern Parkway, there are tunnels. They are small tunnels used to manage rainwater and were constructed in the 1870s. The tunnels do not connect under the parkway, so if you want to move without detection from 770 to, let's say, 330, that's low effort. But to go from 770 to something like 743, which is on the other side of the road, you need to dig that tunnel yourself. And that is exactly what they did. It's a really bad tunnel, not safe, and would fall in again eventually. And when you are connected to the other side of the road, you now can move anything you want between any of the buildings stretching the length of the Western Parkway, completely unseen. And here comes the troubling part. We inspected their dig, filled in the report, and on the notice section we said that we needed to inspect all of the Eastern Parkway for similar damage. We also talked to the police about this. The rain tunnel is 20 feet to 30 feet underground. Most buildings on Parkway don't have two-story basements. They have one story, and the lower unaccessed story is an old stone structure from an earlier build, or just a cleared-out section filled with ballards behind a stone wall facing the tunnel. This means whoever is using the rain tunnel can dig into these areas and set up shop. And if I have learned anything from my almost 20 years working with my father, is that if something stupid could be done, in New York at least, it's already done, more than once. So there's a good chance of many, many dugout areas under the buildings of Eastern Parkway that are used for things not fit for daylight. With this, a good chance of many more trenches being dug out to connect both sides of the road. It makes no sense to dig across the road and not use the full length of the existing tunnel and all the available space underneath the buildings. You can have a 200 square foot apartment in the middle of Brooklyn for the cost of labor. You can have a private dungeon that no one sees or hears. You would be completely protected from the police, and they would not have a chance of doing a surprise raid when you are 500 feet from the closest entrance, and the way from the entrance to your spot is nothing more than a crawl space. And you, on the other hand, have a hidden exit route to the next building, over and into an old service tunnel. Imagine being a criminal and knowing about the tunnels under the city, that you are protected from eyes, ears, and the police. Wouldn't you make use of it? I bet you would, and I know they do. The event at the 770 building is a small glimpse into what exists under New York. It's a city of its own, and no law enforcement has a fair chance of keeping order. I wish that no bad things were happening there, but I saw some videos on Twitter and the beds they dragged out of there, the child seat in the dirt, and the fact that the police hung up a white blanket over a section to shield the insides from the cameras, say otherwise. A last message from someone who works underground all day. Don't go down there. It's not for us.
Okay, folks, that was a voice recording sent to us early this morning from a man working with maintenance and inspections in New York. If you have any more information, please share in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more real-time, real-world news and stories. Stay safe.